From Ryan Shazier's infamous spinal cord injury to Eric LeGrand's grand fall that eventually paralyzed him neck down, it seems as if the NFL has found the real culprit, and banning it would just make the game safer. But the answer might surprise you. Any guesses? The real NFL culprit is the helmet. Shocker, isn't it? The entire purpose of a helmet is to keep a player safe. But as it turns out, it's really falling short of doing its job. And now experts are of the view that banning the helmet might just be the answer. But just imagine, you guys, a football game without a helmet? How does that even work?
Playing with a visor is going to allow you to play to the maximum of your ability because you're not going to be worried about your eyes getting hurt, someone grabbing your face mask, or any type of injury coming through.
What happens when the players headbutt one another? There's probably going to be a whole lot more blood spilled. So if you're someone who gets queasy around blood, then you better watch out, because this isn't a game for the lighthearted. And then again, what about moments in which players tackle one another and they fall onto their heads? The plan almost seems ridiculous in theory. Surely the banning of headgear that is designed to protect the head is likely to cause more head injuries. Aha, that's what it seems. But as it turns out, those supporting the helmet ban have actually thought this through. Don't believe us? Let's look at their reasoning. Starting off with this list that is bound to surprise you. Players whose injuries got worse because of the helmet. Oh, and before I get into giving you all a few examples of these famous men and how the helmet became their worst nemesis in the game, I just need to add that I am not making any of this up. This is based on extensive research done on the brains of deceased football players. Yikes. Getting a little gory, I must admit, but these great men sacrificed their bodies for the game, and then their minds to science. The results of the research were a little insane, and I know we all have this image of old white men in white lab coats poking around the brains of a deceased person, but sometimes it is for the greater good, and especially in this context, where the results would surprise you. It was found that these players had brain damage that was consistent with the brain of an 80-year-old with dementia. The cause, you ask? Consistent concussions from the impact of the helmet hitting their skull. Yikes. And to solidify the point further, we can look at a few examples. Remember Mike Webster, the NFL Hall of Fame legend who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, he had depression, dementia, and other cognitive issues, all discovered post-retirement, all because of repeated head trauma. And then there was Chris Borland. The repeated concussions he bore during his career drove him into early retirement. But do we have enough evidence to scapegoat helmets for all of this? Well, yes we do, because as it turns out, a lot of research has been done on this, and research shows that helmets add to the danger of the game.
When you get hit in the head, your brain sloshes around, hitting the inside of your skull, which can cause a concussion.
Now, football isn't a game without risks. Why do you think the players are strapped head to toe in safety gear? Or why they train intensely in the gym? It's not just for stamina. They need to also build endurance for injury, because big dreams come at a cost, and sometimes the cost is your own safety. But as it turns out, even a tool that is designed to keep you safe can be a double-edged knife. Isn't that ironic? And there are several reasons for this. Of course, the first is the fact that these helmets are made out of hard silicone casing. This means that when players fall on their heads or even butt heads with one another, there's a severe impact on their own head. And the worst part is that this culprit is a hidden one. This means that you may not even immediately recognize it until eventually the issues creep up on you. A little terrifying, don't you think?
Booms one out of there. This is Phillip Adams, all the way back to his own 32-yard line. Hit by his own man, and a penalty marker is down.
And then again, there's the psychological aspect of wearing a helmet too. And if you're wondering what I mean, it's okay, I'll spell it out for you. When players wear helmets, they become more reckless. This may look like more headbutts, rough tackling, taking risks they wouldn't normally take. And again, while all of us understand risking it all for our passion, should the players really have to risk their actual brains? Well, Roger Goodell seems to disagree. That's why the recent steps he's taken shouldn't come as a surprise. Let's look at what Roger Goodell has done to make the NFL safer. Love him, hate him, but we cannot deny the fact that this man is the reason the NFL is as grand as it is. You don't just become commissioner for nothing, there has to be some bone to you, and he has plenty. Except sometimes, it is bound to rub people the wrong way. But that hasn't stopped Roger from doing what he does best. Whatever he thinks is best for business. And in the present context, making sure his players aren't driven into early retirement is what's best for business. That is literally the reason why he's been seriously considering the suggestions made by the Wall Street Journal to just get rid of helmets altogether. I wonder what a game without helmets would look like. But then again, this wouldn't be the first radical rule he's imposed. In fact, helmet legislation has been made before too. Remember the selective helmet ban imposed on the NFL in 2019? Now, if you don't know this already, then I'd suggest you start following the games more closely. Just kidding, these facts are just for the diehard fans. But in 2019, the NFL passed a bill that took away a lot more than players were ready to give up. So many players had to part ways with their beloved helmets because, as it turns out, the NFL introduced a policy in which only certain helmets were allowed. But hey, what if a player's helmet was his lucky charm? Well, sucks to be them then, because even players like Brady had to give up on helmets they had used for decades.
Under 5 to play in the half. Tom Brady and the Bucs continue to trail.
The selection criteria for helmets that qualified as safe was actually pretty narrow, and only 20 models made the cut. Amongst the surviving companies were manufacturers like Riddell, Schutt, and Zenith, but the rest, well, they had to find another sport to cater to. Also, apparently only one helmet is allowed per player starting 2022. Now, imagine what would happen to these companies if helmets were fully banned. That won't be good for business, but as it turns out, the helmet ban might be bad for business too, because some players are more attached to their helmets than others. The following story is so bizarre that you'll be shook. Apparently, Antonio Brown almost retired over his helmet. Hey man, I never judge people for being attached to material objects. Everyone knows I can't sleep without my teddy either, but this man literally almost called it quits because his beloved helmet didn't make the cut. Well, that's one way to protest, but then again, is a helmet really worth compromising your career for? He seemed to think so, or maybe it was just a tantrum. Whatever the case may be, his team tried their best to look for a helmet that would suit him, but he had played with that one on for almost a decade, and he was in no mood to let go. Wow, someone has attachment issues. We wonder how people like him would react when they find out that helmets might potentially get banned. Not all players or even fans would be happy to find out that this is happening, but safety comes first, kids, and banning this is predicted to make the game safer. And on that note, see you guys next time.